Marina was 26 years old when she started a trip that was only supposed to take one day. She was driving from a small town to her grandmother's hometown, and halfway there, the night caught up with her. Rain started coming down so hard she couldn't even see the lines on the road, so she decided to stop. The first motel she found was called The Overlook, an old building, maybe 10 rooms, with a neon sign missing one letter. The clerk, an older man with tired eyes, barely looked up when she walked in. "Room 7, he said, sliding the key across the counter. "Last one at the end." He didn't say anything else. No, "Have a good night." No, "Let us know if you need anything." He just went back to staring at the old TV in the corner, the sound muted, watching the news. The room was ordinary. A slightly musty smell, carpet that looked like it hadn't been changed since the 80s, and a bed that creaked when she sat on it. But it was dry, and that was all she needed. She locked the door, checked the window, and lay down. Around midnight, she woke up to the sound of the lock clicking. At first, she thought she was dreaming, but then she heard it again. Clear, metallic clicking, like someone trying a key that didn't fit. Marina sat up in bed, her heart pounding, and stared at the door until her eyes adjusted to the dark. The doorknob moved. Not much, just a slight turn down and up, like someone on the other side was checking whether it was locked. Marina held her breath. She waited, counting the seconds, and then the knob stopped. Silence. She got up, tiptoed to the door, and looked through the peephole. There was no one outside, just an empty hallway, rainwater dripping from the overhang, and a flickering bulb slowly dying above the walkway. She went back to bed, but she couldn't sleep. After maybe 20 minutes, the clicking started again. This time it lasted longer. This time, like someone turning the knob with both hands. She got up again, but now she grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight before approaching the door. And this time, when she looked through the peephole, something was standing there. She couldn't make out a face, just a silhouette, motionless, facing the door directly, as if it knew exactly where the peephole was and was staring straight into it. Marina jumped back so hard she hit the dresser with her back. She didn't scream. She later said her throat just closed up, like her body knew something her mind hadn't caught up with yet. She waited. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then, with shaking hands, she approached the door again and looked. The silhouette was gone. Instead of calling the police, the signal was too weak. Just one bar. She grabbed her car keys and decided to just run, rain or no rain. But when she opened the door to leave, there was a piece of paper lying on the ground in front of the room, soaked from the rain, with words written by hand. "Don't answer the knocking. Room 7 has always been mine." Marina ran to the front desk, where the same older man was still sitting, staring at the TV like nothing had happened. When she showed him the paper, he wasn't surprised. "I knew you'd find that," he said quietly. "Room 7 is the one we always give out last, because the man who used to live there, he died in that room 20 years ago, and no one ever came looking for him. They say every so often, he checks who's come to visit." Marina never stopped in that town again, and every time she travels at night now, she says she checks under the door before locking it, just to make sure no one's already left her a message. Dan had worked as a night clerk at a motel off the highway for almost 2 years. He'd seen it all: drunk guests, couples fighting, people showing up at 3 in the morning with no luggage, asking for a room by the hour. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. That night, during a shift that started at 10 p.m., a middle-aged man walked into the motel wearing a suit that looked expensive but slightly disheveled, like he'd been wearing it for days. He asked for room 12, specifically that room by number, which was unusual because guests rarely requested a specific room. "That room's occupied," Dan told him, checking the system, "but I've got room 14 right next door." The man just nodded and took the key without a word. Something about his eyes was empty, not angry, not sad, just absent, like he was thinking about something else entirely while looking straight through Dan instead of at him. Around 12:30 a.m., while Dan sat at the desk scrolling through his phone, he noticed something on the monitor for the security camera covering the hallway. The door to room 12, the occupied room, opened, and the man in the suit walked out of it. Dan zoomed in on the footage, thinking he must have mixed something up. But the number on the door was clear. 12. The same room he'd said was occupied. The same man he'd given the key for room 14. He called room 14 on the internal line. No one answered. He checked the guest log. Room 12 was indeed reserved, under a woman's name who had checked in 3 days ago and was supposed to stay another week. He called that room too. Still nothing. He decided to go check in person, even though something told him not to. When he knocked on the door to room 12, no one answered, but the door was unlocked. It just swung open when he pushed it. Inside, it was dark. The bed was made. The woman's suitcase sat in the corner, exactly as she described it at check-in, but there was no one in the room. Then he heard a sound from the bathroom, water running. He walked over slowly, his heart pounding, and opened the bathroom door. The bathroom was empty, just a faucet dripping, drop by drop, into a sink full of reddish water that looked like someone had been washing something, or someone in it. Dan called the police, his hands shaking so badly he dialed the wrong number twice. While he waited, he went back to the front desk and pulled up the footage again, this time going back to when the woman checked into room 12 3 days earlier. The footage showed her entering the room alone at 10 p.m. After that, the door never opened again. Not until that night, when the man in the suit walked out of it. Police searched the room and found, under the bed, her phone with a shattered screen and 17 missed calls, all from the same number, saved under the contact name, "Don't answer, please." The woman was never found. The man in the suit never came back for his things in room 14. And when police checked that room, the suitcase he'd been carrying was empty except for one item, her earrings, placed carefully on the pillow, like a gift. Dan quit a week later. He says the worst part is that whenever he closes his eyes, he still sees that footage, a man walking out of a room they never saw him enter. Before we move on to the third story, write in the comments if something strange or terrifying has ever happened to you in a motel or in a place like it. Alex had been driving a truck for 15 hours straight when he decided he had to stop. The route he was running passed through a pretty empty stretch of land with motels scattered every hour or two of driving, and he pulled into one called simply Motel 24, a name that ironically promised it was always open. The clerk, a young woman who looked just as tired as he felt, handed him the key for room 3 and said something that didn't strike him as strange at the time. "If the room phone rings tonight, don't pick up after midnight. Just let it ring." He figured it was some kind of local joke, maybe a warning about scammers calling guests to ask for card numbers. He thanked her, went to his room, showered, and lay down to get a few hours of sleep before hitting the road again. The phone next to the bed rang at 11:47 p.m. He answered, thinking it was the front desk with some notice. But on the other end of the line, all he heard was breathing, slow, steady, like someone listening rather than speaking. "Hello?" Alex said. The breathing continued. He hung up. He checked the clock, 11:52. 8 minutes until midnight. He remembered the clerk's warning and felt his skin crawl, but told himself it was just exhaustion messing with his head. The phone rang again at 11:58. This time, he didn't pick up. He just sat in bed and watched it ring, once, twice, 10 times, and then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the ringing. At exactly midnight, he heard a knock on the door. Quiet, a single knock. Then nothing. Then a minute later, again, a little harder. Alex got up, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole, fully aware now that his heart was beating faster than he wanted to admit. A woman was standing outside. She was soaked, like she'd been walking in the rain, even though it hadn't rained that night. She was staring straight at the door, and then quietly, she said a sentence Alex heard through the door, as clearly as if she were standing right beside him. Please let me in. I lost the key to my room." And then she added a room number. His room. Alex didn't open the door. Instead, he ran to the room phone and called the front desk. The clerk answered immediately, as if she'd been waiting for the call. "Don't open it," she said before he could get a word out. "Please, just don't open it and don't talk to her. I'll be there in 5 minutes." The knocking on the door grew louder. The woman was talking faster now, in a pleading voice that started to break, like a recording speeding up and slowing down at random. Alex backed away toward the bed, and that's when he noticed something that froze the blood in his veins. The shadow under the door wasn't moving like someone standing. There were 2 shadows, one on each side of the threshold, as if someone or something was kneeling right up against the door instead of standing. The clerk arrived, and he heard her talking to someone outside. Not to the woman, but in a calm, tired voice, like she'd done this before. After a few minutes, everything went quiet. When she finally opened the door to check on him, she told him the truth the motel usually doesn't share with guests. 6 years ago, a woman had stayed in room 3, waiting for a husband who'd promised he'd arrive that night. He never showed up. She waited for days, calling the front desk every night at midnight to ask if anyone had come asking for her. She died in that room, still waiting. "She's still waiting," the clerk said, "except now she thinks every guest is him." Alex slept in his truck that night, in the parking lot, doors locked. He never stopped at that motel again, and he says that ever since, whenever a hotel room phone rings past midnight, he just unplugs it from the wall. Next time you're traveling and have to stop at a gas station somewhere in the middle of the night, and you see that old neon sign promising a warm room and a peaceful night's sleep, maybe think twice, because some guests never check out, some are still waiting behind the door, and some are simply checking who's come to visit them. If you enjoyed these stories, send me yours. Maybe your story will end up in the next video. Until then, check the lock on your door.